Hey Courtney, alright, so here is your past life spread. So, what we're going to do is we're going to look at where you are. Okay, we have the island card. What you did with the majority of your time, like a job or an occupation, or even how you spent most of your days if there wasn't such thing as like jobs or whatever. And then we're going to go to the first important day with the relationship and the feeling of that moment or period of time. Sometimes it's a moment, a day, sometimes it's a week, we'll see, but we call it the first important day. Then we're going to the next important day with the relationship and the feeling cards here. And so then we go to the death card, and then we'll get a lesson out of this. Not always one lesson, sometimes it's many, but it usually will cover it all. And then this is the time card, so we'll see where in time we are. And all I'm going to do is relay to you the like impressions and images that are coming through. And your job is going to be to try to make connections where you can based off of what comes through in your current life. And I'll try to help however I can as well. Just keep in mind that you can be making direct connections or opposite connections, which just means whatever comes through here, let's say this person liked cold weather. A direct connection would be that you like cold weather. But the opposite connection would be that you can't stand cold weather because your soul already experienced it here. So you like hot weather now because your soul wants to experience a life where you like hot weather for some reason. You know what I'm saying? So just keep in mind you could be making the direct connections and opposite connections. So let's start. So the where card, when I put this down, this is the island card. So it was pulling me, let's go east, and it's like left me like, I want to say like east of either like Australia or east of just like that whole, if you go straight up, like it's, if so, it feels kind of like, it feels like there's like almost like Japanese elements to this island. But then what was overwhelming about it was the, like Aboriginal kind of, what's it called, where it's Polynesian. So basically it's just placing me east over there at the islands that are over there. And if you can actually find an island that has both the elements of like Japanese elements from Japan, and then like the Polynesian aspect feels like it's the God, there's like, what is it called, New Zealand, or even like Papua New Guinea, or like look at that stuff and look at the like the art there, the culture, just like get a feel for it basically. And if you've ever been pulled towards any of that in your life, that would be a connection to this. So keep that in mind. And if, like, that's just if you haven't seen it, but maybe you already know that you really do like Polynesian aesthetics or lifestyle or that kind of thing. And that would be connection just in a small way, as well as with the Japan, because there are both these elements. So if you actually see an island that's halfway between the two, that would probably be what we're looking at. Because these islands sometimes it's Australia, you know, and that's huge. So it's not always these like little Fiji-ish kind of islands. But this does feel Polynesian and kind of tropical-ish to an extent. And keep that in mind too, as far as, I mean, it could be the kind of thing where you want a vacation there. Like you've always wanted to go to Hawaii. You've always been pulled towards like a Hawaii type thing, or even Japan, or the islands off the coast of Australia, whatever it is. If you ever had any desire to go on vacation, that would just be another connection kind of thing, because it's just those little triggers, those little pulls. Or if it causes any emotion in you, like if you watch movies that are based in that area of the world, do you feel like, oh wow, I feel like I've been there, it's familiar, it's comfortable, it's something I would like. So keep making connections. We're going to go to the next card. This is what you did with the majority of your time. And this feels, well, this is the hunter and provider card. So usually when we get that, you know, we're talking like it could be literal, like someone who hunts and brings food back to the family. Otherwise, it could be like this card representing kind of like the alpha, I want to say usually alpha male of a situation. things like that. So I'm just trying to see what's coming through here. Okay, so what it feels like is, as far as the time goes, it feels like we're looking at something that's kind of like during what we would consider medieval times, or yeah, like the medieval times, or is it the Renaissance? I don't know, I get those mixed up, but it's like during the period of where the aesthetic was like medieval. Because it's like, I feel like they're bringing up like one of those like Ren Fests kind of thing, and that's what it feels like we're looking at, but it's in this part of the world, and I feel like the aesthetics, like the clothing, whatever it was during medieval times, was different here, because it feels like these people are completely different. Trying to, like, I feel like there's something that's not part of the civilized world, or like maybe even like if there's any trade going on, it's scarce. Like it doesn't happen often. I'm trying to see what's going on here. So it's something like, okay, so it's almost like they're not developing along with the rest of the world. So if you can make any connection with that in itself is a feeling for a reason. But if you are pulled towards the medieval or Renaissance periods, like learning about them in school or whatever it is, the aesthetics of them, maybe you see paintings and you like it, that would just be another kind of connection. But also about this feeling of not developing with the rest of the world could be brought up for the purpose of kind of examining your life and seeing, like, just checking in with yourself about what are you prioritizing or what are you focusing on. Like, are you having any issues with comparing yourself with others, or like thinking to yourself, like maybe you have like some thoughts like, oh, I should have attained this by now because so and so has this, or you know how sometimes we're like, oh, by the time my parents were 30 they had their first house and you don't, kind of thing. So keep that in mind as far as if you're having any of those thoughts or issues happening in your mind lately, playing with those ideas. That is a connection as well. As far as like not feeling caught up with something, maybe this can also be like, it's almost like a feeling of procrastination as well. So if you're fumbling with procrastination, I hate to say fumbling, but if you're dealing with like procrastination, not getting things done, things you know that you need to be getting done, because when you put the work into these things, it's going to benefit you, but you just might be procrastinating or not getting things done that you know you should get done. This would just be a little like reminder, like, hey, try to focus and get those things done. If, let's say, you have a list of projects to do, this would just be kind of an indicator to like re-examine those and maybe put some time into them, because that's putting time into yourself. So that's another reason why that might be coming up, is just a message to make sure that you are putting time into yourself, and also usually that comes with like a little message that, hey, spending time with yourself is not selfish. You know, even if you have kids, like, you get a babysitter and go make sure you get you time in, whatever that might be. So keep that in mind. And this hunter provider card can also be the kind of thing where it's being brought up in case, let's say, you're feeling pressured right now as far as money goes, or to pay the bills, or to make sure all your bases are covered, whatever it might be. Usually that's financially, but it could be emotionally or whatever. But if you feel like you're not on top of everything lately, that's why this card could be brought up, just to like a message again to focus on yourself. It's because when you focus on yourself, then you'll be able to like kind of organize things. Like, just make sure you go into like self-focus time, make sure that there's an element of organization involved in that. I feel like that's going to help you in a lot of ways, but you already might be a very highly organized person. So that's all I can get from here. So keep making connections with that, and we're going to go to the first important day. So this is the trauma card. So usually, obviously, we're looking at something that is traumatizing, and then the relationship card is the soul group. So we're looking at someone who you see, you know, probably time and time again, because you're part of the same soul group, traveling around, usually family members, best friends, but soul group can also be enemies as well. The feeling card here is neutral. So I'm just trying to see what's happening here. So it's almost like there's something happening to a segment of the population, and it feels like I want to say like it's a small community, or almost like I want to say tribe just by the way that it feels like family. How these people systematically like just get along with each other simply because they're neighbors, you know? Like it takes a village to raise a child is like kind of their mantra kind of thing. But I don't want to say they're like not civilized because they have their own like rules and regulations in that way, which sometimes comes up how it's coming up as a little message to make sure that you're keeping things in perspective as far as if you feel like there are people that are, like you find you're judging them, just make sure you realize that and it could be opposite, like they're judging you or you're feeling judged. Just understanding the overall concept that everyone's on their own path and their own journey, and certain people that may play the villain in your life may actually be, teaching you the greatest lessons, and to see it for that, make sure you're focusing on what's good about that. If there are any, if anything like that is happening in your life. But anyway, it feels like this segment here, there's a population that gets, I want to say, for like sick, and I don't know why. I can't tell if it's like, oh, they ate a certain food and all got sick from the ones that ate that got sick, or it's like a new virus or whatever, but it just feels like they're basically like blocking out a population, like a segment of it. So it's an illness basically. It would be the trauma of seeing these people suffer, and I'm trying to see. Okay, so it's almost like it feels like there's a point reached where it doesn't feel like you're sick. It feels like you're watching them be sick, and it feels like it's happening for a while, so that you start to just like get numb to it. So it's almost like a closed off feeling. So if you feel like in your life, like if you have issues, boundary issues, or like it takes a while for people to get to your like inner circle kind of thing, but this feels more like it'd be like a numbing technique to get, because you might be used to something in your life, so you've numbed yourself to it, even though it's like, I don't want to say like abuse, because it could be even just like a light verbal, something that makes you feel bad, but like it's something that's consistent on a daily basis. So it feels like it's almost like, oh, if you're in a relationship and that person just has been doing something for so long, for like so many years, that you kind of numb yourself out to it, or you block it out. I feel like that would be a connection as far as like a message to re-examine again, like how you want to be treated, to make sure you feel like you're being treated respectfully, that you can create boundaries if you want to. They could be healthy, safe boundaries. On the other hand, it could be what we were talking about, the walls going up and putting up too many boundaries. So basically it's just a theme of boundaries that you should examine, because that really is the key of like, who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you allowing to spend, like, who are you allowing in your aura, for lack of better terms, you know what I mean? Like, make sure that you're respecting yourself by putting yourself with people who are like a good fit for you, a good energy, not making you feel disrespected, that kind of thing. And this might also come, with the soul group card, that also might be like, hey, examine your family members. Make sure that your family members are treating you respectfully, because that's a lot of times where we find people are kind of like let off the hook a lot as far as respecting their family members, because, oh, we're family, like, get over it. And a lot of that is like just plain disrespectful, like things that you wouldn't do with normal, like your friends wouldn't treat you that way. So just know that, family members are not off the hook. If you're spending time with family that you feel is like more harmful than not, emotionally or whatever, then again, re-examine, where your environment. And again, even though they're family, it doesn't mean you have to spend time with them, and you can create your own family from friends, so just keep that in mind. So let's go to the next important day. So here we have the War card. It doesn't always mean there's like a war happening. It could be emotional war, it could be, war inside. It could be a battle, it can be war is coming, or something where basically there's just going to be a dissonance occurring. The relationship involved is Friends card, and the feelings are held back. So I'm trying to see what's going on here. Okay, so it feels like what's coming here is actually fleshing out what this is, and it is like a bacteria or a new illness, and it feels like it was brought over, because here it feels like we're looking at people coming to the island almost like, yeah, it's almost like, I don't know, for like Europeans coming to the island, and it's not war, it just feels like there's a clash of interests, because it feels like the ones that were coming, or that the ones that came to the island, the new ones, didn't know there would be anyone there, or didn't expect maybe such a large community there. So that's what it feels like when the war card pops up. So that can also speak to, let's say in your life, any connection with, it's kind of like, it feels more about like work, or wherever you go to spend time with people. So it might not even be work, but it's like if you have to go volunteer, or if you have to go, let's say you have kids, you know how sometimes people go help out at the school or something like that, where you have to be with people, and you have to work with people that you might not want to see on a daily basis. So if anyone comes to mind when I say that, as far as someone you have to see maybe on a daily or weekly basis, that you wouldn't be spending time with if it weren't for so-and-so, you know, that kind of thing, that this would be a message about that. So hold on. Okay, so if there's a situation that you're dealing with that we just talked about with someone that makes you feel that way, it feels like there is a message about, like, this isn't, like, whenever you come into that kind of situation, when you have to deal with someone because of a certain aspect of your life, you can't help it. It feels like this is, if you come across this, that it's done for a purpose, like it's part of your contract, like almost like it would be like you came in here to learn the lesson of forgiveness, patience. Like that's how you decided to learn forgiveness and patience, would be based on how you deal with people, or the people in your life that you have to deal with, in learning like patience and forgiveness, as far as like how they treat you, or I don't know, there seems to be like a theme of like how you let people treat you, or how people are treated in general. Maybe that's something that you care about. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's something that maybe you're looking for a theme to explore in your life. It'd be treatment of people for each other. I know it sounds kind of abstract and weird, but that's what's coming up. But there's something about befriending that part that doesn't like it. Like, lean into the part that, like, when you're dealing with people you don't like it, the best way to go about it would be to lean into the part that you don't like and become friends with it. Like, I know it sounds so weird, like with the friends card here, but that's what it feels like. Basically, like, it's almost like if you've ever heard like, hey, send love to the darkest, like send love and light to the darkest parts. You know, it's kind of like that. It's like putting light in the dark places by showing it friendship, when really it's showing it friendship because it's helping you in the way of like learning a lesson. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of like weird, but anyway, that's what's there. And make sure that you don't allow certain situations to hold you back, especially dealing with people. Make sure that you don't let it affect you longer than it needs to affect you. Let's say you do have a tendency to kind of hold on to something, which is normal because we're human. But if that's the case, that would just be kind of like a red flag to pay attention to, an opportunity to just learn, you know, examine that part about you, if that makes sense. So don't let others hold you back in the growth of that, and don't hold yourself back by allowing others to affect you in a way that would hold you back by, you know, just rousing any feelings of like anger, frustration, stress. Like, try to let it go as much as you can. Focus on the positive kind of thing, if you can. Also, I wanted to make a note, as far as to the soul group card. Don't forget, I mentioned it before, I think really quickly, but it is something to think about, where the people in your life that might be causing you to, you know, result in anger, whatever it is, to bother you, whatever's doing, the one trying you the most, they are teachers. So like when it's all said and done, you're back in your, you know, soul group, and you see each other and you're best friends. So this might help you as far as releasing any judgment against people, or releasing anything you need to release, which you can do with, you know, meditation or hypnosis. There's all kinds of ways you can do that, but it's about like clearing stuff up and creating space in yourself. So let's say you want to learn to develop your gifts, and, you know, maybe you want to do, I don't know, Reiki or whatever it is. You're going to need to clear some space and clear up some gunk inside. And this is a good way to think about it, so that it's not cluttered in there. Those thoughts are not cluttered in your mind, which is just to see everybody as a teacher and everything as an opportunity. And that way it's kind of like transmuting a negative thought into a positive one right away, just by seeing it from a different perspective. So that's just it feels like that's just coming up, just to remember to like take a step back, see from the larger picture perspective for situations, and it's almost like things will go real smoothly when you do that kind of thing. Just kind of stepping back in a way and observing a situation rather than being or allowing your emotions to attach you to it in a way where you can't see some of it, because it's something about like just making sure that you aren't blinding yourself in whatever way. Like usually that speaks about maybe being in denial about a certain thing, where once you're aware of it, you might not even be aware you're in denial about something, but just again taking a step back, looking at yourself, and then just becoming aware of that aspect of yourself that maybe you weren't before, and seeing if that's something that you can change, you know, either do without or change or whatever. It feels like something about changing that aspect, to just allowing things to go a lot smoother because of that, if you're able to do that, if that makes sense. If you connect with that in any way. But and if you don't connect to this now, that's perfectly fine. Just kind of like tuck it in the back of your mind, and it's just like a formula for how you might best deal with certain people. There you go. And we're gonna go to the death card over here. But I do want, there's one more thing about, yeah, okay. So for this card real quick, what's coming through is, if you ever heard the ego, in these terms, the ego the ego is what's in control. It's like your personality. It's what everybody sees, like when you go outside and, you know, everyone knows you as a certain way. So that's your ego, and it's not a bad thing at all. A lot of people say it's a bad thing. But the ego has a voice that's really loud, and you hear it very easily and throughout the day, and you're used to this voice. It's like, it's just a natural part of us. But then there's this other part that's your, let's say, your higher self, or your subconscious, or your inner self, or whatever that is, and that's different from the ego. So that voice is usually much gentler, and it sounds like your own voice in the form of thoughts that are more gentle. And then you have that ego voice in your head, and I feel like what's coming through is they just want me to explain that, to kind of also, because it feels like there's something about shifting your perspective and just keeping in mind to listen to the gentler voice and to not always give in to the louder voice, and something about that helping with whatever it is that you might want to kind of like delve into, I guess, or like, you know, on your spiritual journey or whatever you're doing, you know, whatever you might want to pick up a practice or something, listen to the gentler voice, if that makes sense. And that'd be your higher self, versus always listening to the ego, which is very easy and what most of us do. So I don't know if you connect with that, great. And if not, just again tuck that in the back of your mind for a later time, should that ever become relevant. But we're gonna go to the death card here. This is the natural card, and it feels like we're looking at just like much later in years. And I actually feel like we're looking at a male. Like as I'm speaking, it just feels like this is a male aspect. And so that in itself can be a connection to you. If you ever found that you were a tomboy, or maybe you have more masculine attributes or like qualities, or, you know, whatever masculine means, like outgoing and whatever, or even masculine characteristics or whatever it is. If you've ever felt that way at all, that could be a connection too, just showing you a male life. And if not, sometimes you go the opposite way and you go, oh, maybe you're like totally into your feminine aspects in this life, you know, just because they're showing a masculine life or a male life. Just something to consider. But anyway, it feels like it's much later, and it feels like the moment of death is what they're kind of bringing through. And it's really nice because it's like this older man is laying down, like going to bed, and as he's going to bed, he's thinking of thoughts, and the thoughts are of memories of really good times throughout his life. So it's like that's how he transitions. And I feel like that, if anything, that would be brought up to, it could be brought up to basically like as a message to ease any worries you have, or ease your mind about any fears you may have about death in general, to show you that it can be the most peaceful, wonderful thing. Or it can just reinforce, if you're someone that has a good handle on death, that's just a reinforcer that it really can be a beautiful transition, if it's your time, you know, like if the time, you know, that's how it's supposed to be. So keep that in mind, and connect with that however you can. And we're going to go to the lesson card. So here is the trust card. And with the trust card, that can mean a few things. It can mean trust in others, trust in yourself, trust in the situation. But I feel like I'm reading this life where it has to do with like dealing with other people. Which, by the way, I do want to say, I want to mention, if the fact that we're looking at this like this community of people, and how it's kind of like, it's almost like a really large neighborhood kind of thing. So there's like a coziness to it. So it could mean, if you're someone that, you don't know why, but you might lean towards living like in a small town, or like you like to know your neighbors, community oriented. If that's been a goal, to like have a life where you are community oriented, or you're part of a community, or that's what you need in your life, that would be a connection. On the other hand, it could be the opposite. So if you've always found like you're like, I'm a loner and I don't need a community and I don't need roots, I can move around, you know, and that's what you like, is the idea of just like picking up and going, this and that. That can also make sense because it's the opposite of this. So your soul might just want to experience that as well. But dealing with all these people, when it comes to the trust card, it feels like we're dealing with like two parts of this, like trusting you, like trusting your gut in choosing the right people or the right scenarios to place yourself in. If there's like new people coming into your life and you're wondering about them, like just go with your gut, trust your instincts, trust your intuition, trust what you feel about someone or something. And I feel like it's important that you do that, because learning to trust in yourself in that way will open you up to more opportunities where you'll be able to use your own guidance for more like intentional activity, like things that like you'll be able to expand that as a gift. It's very interesting. So you need to learn to trust that, and also trust that there are certain people that are presented in our lives, that come into our lives at certain times, and some of these people might feel like best friends you've known forever, you know, within like right when you meet them, kind of deal, and others just, you know, they get put in your way, like we were talking about, like going to work every day and having to see someone just because it's work and not wanting to, but they're put in your way, they're put in on your radar for a reason. And it's like, don't don't deny that, like trust that there's a situation for a reason. Trust that it's like, this is the best way to handle a problem, it feels like, is like trust that the situation is in your life for a reason. It's not to punish you. Trust that there's an opportunity and a lesson in that, and that's going to do, I feel like do like a whole big thing to I don't know, just like how you deal with things in general. It might be very helpful to like think that thought, is to remember, like, this is here for a reason. It's not to punish me, but it's here for a reason. Then, like, it's kind of like a treasure hunt. Like, why is this here, right? Like, trying to figure out, what am I learning from this? What, like, it's like, what am I gaining from this situation that otherwise I might find very, like, annoying, or very, like would maybe you usually do think you're being punished, like, oh, what did I do to deserve this, kind of thing. But instead of thinking those thoughts, immediately go to, what's the goal here, like, what am I learning? And then as soon as you learn it, you can trust that situation will find its way, like, out of your life. It always happens that way. So just, like, play the game is what I want to say. That's what it feels like. And so just trust, again, that's where the trust comes in. It's like trusting every step you're walking on your path is intentional, is right and good. It's there for a reason. There's not going to be a stepping stone on your path that's not supposed to be there. It was built there with intention, if you want to think of it like that, like give it a visual. So trust the experience of life, like in general. Trust that there's people in it for a reason. And it could be even some people come around again, or you see people in your life for a reason, and that reason could be for you to simply ignore them and go on your way, and not communicate with them, and not reach out in a way where before you might have. Does that make sense? That's just the scenario they're bringing through. But they were there for a reason. They popped up again for a reason, but is the reason always to be proactive? You know what I mean? So just, like, again, this is about, like, shifting perspective and dealing with people, learning to trust yourself and the moment, and trust that things are happening for a reason. Like, trust yourself to move away from certain situations. Trust yourself that you're, strong enough and capable enough to make changes in your life for the better, maybe in regards to who you spend your time with, or what you spend your time around. And it's all gonna come together in a really nice way, is what it feels like, just like a gear turning. So keep that in mind. Keep making connections where you can. And if you find that island, let me know. I'd be very interested to learn about that. And I do want to, also just really quick about the island that's coming up again, just because, if you are connected to the beach, if being by the water is something that is, like, where you would go to relax, for therapy, to get away, water. And if not, try it, because it feels like there's something there that would be very soothing, calming for you. Also, this place does have mountains too, so if you find that you're a mountain person or a beach person, or I want to say water person, that would be connections in itself. And there's something very, like, healing about the water that you might want to connect with on a different level if you're into that kind of thing. So anyway, there is your past life, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some connections, and thanks for letting me read you.